Hi everyone, Archana and I welcome you to this episode of Consciously Caring for Aging Parents. We bring our combined wisdom and life experiences to each of these conversations. May these conversations inspire, nurture, and support you in your own journey while you care for your aging parents. So let's dive in. So, hi Archana, and welcome to episode 5 of Consciously Caring for Aging Parents. And this is like a really heavy episode. We're talking about emotional health and mental well being of the caregiver. So, it is a heavy one. So, I want to start by acknowledging that both of us are actually putting ourselves on here with a lot of courage to talk about some things which can be very, very touchy for us and for the listeners. What do you have to say, Archana?
Hi, Smruti. I completely agree with what you said. It's a heavy topic and all the things that have happened. It's pretty much over here today. And it, in fact, made me emotional as I was going through this whole topic. So I hope we'll be able to give our best here today.
Yes, I hope so. And I really hope the listeners get what is needed for them. So, to begin with, let's start with, a feeling of overwhelm. I think that's the simplest place to start with. I'm thinking, where you feel so overwhelmed by things that are happening. I think mainly because of one reason, and that is we feel out of control. Like we feel like we are not in control. We feel helpless. Things are happening not the way we were envisioning it to. So, this uncertainty, right? The word is uncertainty, which is there, which makes us worry all the time. I can see myself or catch myself worrying of the what ifs so much that you leave the present moment and you're not here. And the best way to care for our aging parents is to actually be here. So, how the worry abducts us is, true for all of us. So, do you want to share your experience with worry?
See, when we are caring, it is for our beloved parents, right? And we've been there for them, and they've been so much for us from the beginning. And to see them go through that kind of decline or to cope with their health issues can be overwhelming for a caregiver. But also, when I feel when healthy boundaries are not set, one can feel overwhelmed as a caregiver. And also, one can feel a little trapped as well. And it's a common experience for caregivers because of the kind of demands that it takes to be a caregiver on the caregivers, for the caregivers' time, energy, and maybe even the finances part.
Mhm.
So, this constant responsibility can make them feel stuck in the role of a caregiver with no escape.
Yeah.
So, it can actually leave very little time for the caregiver for their own personal needs or goals. Um, when I was caring for my mother during her illness, although I'm a Montessori educator and a Montessori consultant, I had to set all that aside and make myself completely available for my mother. So, it was not like there were times when I couldn't even think of going back to do something that I always wanted to in terms of my career.
Mhm.
So I had to give up on that entirely to be by her side.
Mhm.
So what happens many times is there's a sense of imbalance that
Mhm.
is created. And this often leads to feeling isolated and frustrated.
Mhm.
And, you feel that you're the only one there.
Mm-hmm.
doing this caregiving thing. And you can also experience that burnout,
Mm-hmm.
and you can have a lot of emotional fatigue because of this whole
Mm-hmm.
process.
Mm-hmm.
So, obviously that can also diminish the quality of life for a caregiver.
Mm-hmm.
Ideally, this is what my thoughts are on.
Yeah,
Uh,
everything you say is so true, and I think it's true at different levels for different people. And I just came across this quote, which I thought would be appropriate to say here is worry is our brain's way of gaining control in uncertainty. So I think we think by worrying about our parents, we are actually helping them. But like you said, this over worrying can also make us be so stressed and fatigued that we are not presenting ourselves in our authentic way to our parents when we actually meet them. And I mean, yes, I think with old age and with aging parents, there is a certain amount of embracing of the uncertainty, which is true, I think, for life itself, but it's so more visible in the old age and the aging process, So, embracing that uncertainty takes a lot of work. It doesn't happen on its own. So I think we can talk about certain things that help us handle this worry that we have, the overwhelm, the frustration, everything that one feels while caring. Because also, Archana, I don't know if you can see this. It's reality reflecting to us literally, because this is reality for all of us, right? So we are in a way looking at our future here in front of us, and that can be daunting as well. For different people it's different things, but you got a point in the beginning which you said about the fact that these were our caregivers that we are looking at now. So I think that is a big point where when you are born, you see your mother and father as the all knowing, always there, permanent, healthy, and that stable security for you, And now that whole thing is that whole building that we have built around them is kind of crumbling into something else. A new version of them is coming, which is not recognizable by us. So we feel this worry all the more, the frustration all the more, and that kind of can be upsetting for us. So let's talk about what are some things that come up, and in terms of coaching language and in terms of the layman's language, right? It's all there in real life. The first one I thought we can talk about is enmeshment. And just to define it in a very simple term, is where we don't know where we end and where our parents begin, and vice versa. So, what happens is their pain, and they are going through pain because they themselves are in a body which looks different, acts different, feels different. And that pain, instead of seeing it and being for it, we become it, which means we also get into that pain. And that is not helpful, because then who is in the house? The driver is not there, because both of us are into our pain. So there is no driver here. So that's where the relationship starts to lose its connection and, tenacity. So do you have anything to share about this?
I'd like to actually quote an example here, so maybe it becomes a little more clear. And I mean, let's assume that a daughter is caring for her aging mother who has a chronic condition, a chronic illness, and she begins to skip her own medical appointments, or ignoring her own self, her own career, and probably she does not even go out to meet her friends because she feels that leaving her mother alone, can bring her a lot of feelings of guilt. And so she starts internalizing her mother's pain and struggles,
Mhm.
believing that she is the only one who can give that quality care for her mother, and nobody else can do it as good as she can. And but then she starts kind of, taking this whole responsibility on herself, um, voluntarily, that she, over a period of time, she starts feeling emotionally drained. And because she has been unable to set that healthy boundaries with caregiving. So emotional enmeshment happens when the emotional boundaries between the caregivers and their parents blur.
Absolutely.
So it's natural that love and attachment is there as caregivers for our parents. But feeling overly responsible for their parents' emotional and physical well being can actually lead to that emotional enmeshment.
Yes.
Am I right, Smriti?
Yes, yes. Oh my God. So right. And that's beautiful, those emotional boundaries that you're talking about. And I can see it in my own example, like I'm just getting unmeshed from my mom. Like I am very meshed and enmeshed with her. So her pain used to become my pain. And when her pain used to become my pain, when I meet her, I'm not feeling that free flow of energy. Rather, I'm feeling anger and trying to fix something, solve something, make her happy. Come on, everything's okay, we are living happily ever after. There is that so much of effort. But the moment I started seeing myself where I am and my mom where she is, and acknowledging my own pain and seeing her pain, I'm starting to be more compassionate. I'm noticing, Archana. I'm able to see her pain from a space, not by in being in it and becoming that me also feeling the same pain. I'm able to look at it from space. So this emotional enmeshment is happening because of misunderstanding that love means that when another feels sad, we should also feel sad. Love is not feeling the same feeling as the other one. That is enmeshment. Love is understanding that one is feeling like this and I am here for you no matter what. And for me to be there for my parents no matter what, I have to be there for myself no matter what. You know what I mean? It's all a vicious circle. So I think I see in society, enmeshment is looked upon as love. But like you rightly said, and I think we need to bring this distinction that we're not asking not to care. We are asking to care from a space that is outside the pain rather than being in the pain, in the muck of it, because then that care is getting little bit kitschy with anger, and why don't you get feel so better soon, what more to give you, all the more frustration rather than love for our parents. I'm finding this extremely helpful on a personal experience level by just knowing that this is where my feelings end. This is how much I can do. That's where the uncertainty part comes. We can't fix everything and make pains go away, make wounds heal, make everything happen, right? It's not possible for us to do it, but we can provide a space in which that is possible. And for that, we have to identify our enmeshment with our parents and see if there is a enmeshment of the two skins, like where we and our parent become one. We are not one, we are two individuals where the skin separates us, and that's where we realize the difference. Then we can be there for our parents,
Yes.
right? Uh,
Mm-hmm.
and then their pain, although can cause a lot of pain in us. Why? Because they are our caregivers and we share a past with them. We love them, so many reasons, but we don't get engulfed by that pain. We don't forget who we are. We don't forget, like you said, Archana, where you had to leave your work. We don't forget who we are. And there is that identity still maintained of there is this separate identity. I think that's important. What do you say?
Yes, very true.
right? To show up for the parent in a way that is healthy for them and for us. So, enmeshment is one thing, and we spoke about worry. And this is another thing that I want to talk about, which I've experienced recently, and you have too. We've spoken about it, and that is hospital trauma. That's a hard one and a real one. Oh God, I cannot tell you where to start. Like when my dad went through his surgery, the very fact of signing those papers when anesthesia is given, when admissions are made, is can be so daunting, can be so stressful. And yet, some of us have support, other people coming. Some of us have to do it alone with a big stone on your heart. And some of those things that you read, you can't sign. It's very hard, right, Archana?
Absolutely, Smriti.
Experience this.
Yes, it's very difficult to do that. You know, so I mean, just a little bit again to share my own experience. When I was caring for my elderly mother, who used to require frequent hospitalization because of her respiratory issues. So each time she was rushed to the emergency room or the ICU, or whenever we had to call in the ambulance, I used to experience this intense fear, anxiety, and that helplessness as I watched her, in pain, surrounded by those medical machines and unfamiliar faces around her. And, the repeated cycle of waiting for the test reports like how is our oxygen level, what is the carbon dioxide level, things like that. And sometimes even to deal with those medical jargons
Mhm.
and fearing that the worst would leave me feeling emotionally drained.
Yes.
So over time, I developed anxiety.
Mhm.
Every time I saw those symptoms that she was not doing well and it might call for a hospitalization. So I was fearing that, and she might need another hospitalization episode, might be there, and so those would be such distressing moments. In fact, it would affect my sleep and at times even my mental peace that I'm worrying so much. You know,
Mhm.
so this is the kind of impact it can have on caregivers um, due to such unpredictable medical situations. Sometimes, as I said, there can be sleep disturbances, or you're being hyper vigilant about your parent. You're on and off going and checking, whether they are doing okay. So, and in the hospital, um, it's like, I mean, when you are there as a caregiver by the side of your parent and you're trying to catch some sleep, but the constant disturbances, the nurses keep coming into the ward, turning on the light, checking on the patient. So it the whole process of hospitalization would kind of actually scare me so much. It would cause so much of anxiety in me, and I didn't want that to happen. But you can't stop the inevitable from happening.
Yes. Yes, we'll come to that. I'm sure I know we're talking about something related to what you're saying. I just want to add to what all you said. I see you guys, whoever has had these experiences and your parents have been in the ICU, have gone and seen them or cared for them there. Please be compassionate to yourself. Your emotional well being is really challenged at this point because there is so much more that you're seeing that maybe you're not ready yet and you're getting ready slowly to see. So that's one thing. The signing of papers, take support, ask friends, family, somebody to stand by you. Just stand by you while you do it. And know that if your parent is in the mental health to answer questions, they can be involved in these decisions. But if not, decisions of the mode of treatment and all these things are taken by the caregivers, right? And that becomes really daunting on us. Are we taking the right decision? And when that decision is taken, the outcome is also embraced by us, right? Like whatever the outcome may be is becomes our thing. But to know that we are doing it with the best of intentions, with the best of guidance that we have in this moment, and knowledge that we have, with the best intention for our parents. So keep that in mind, but also stay with yourself, sit with yourself, and put your hand on your heart and just be there for yourself, because these are really, really hard situations in life. So that is about hospital trauma. Hospital trauma is a thing. If you have had to go through it, please be compassionate with yourself and give yourself some soothing tools like breathing, meditating, relaxing, listen to music, or taking some time off after this particular incident, because that could have drained your nervous system. Like Archana said, you're hyper vigilant. And especially in the hospital, you're watching, are they breathing? Is the breathing normal? All the time. I still remember recently having that. And any sound comes, I would get up saying, is the breath there? What is happening? And literally looking at my dad to see everything is okay. So I get what you're talking about, Archana. And I think the listeners, if they have experienced something like this, may feel seen and heard just by knowing that everybody goes through this. Just because we are adults, we don't have to have it all known. We don't know. We've never experienced a aging parent before this. We have only two parents, and we learn from these experiences. This is our first time. So that is hospital trauma. The next thing, I think we spoke a little bit about guilt and anxiety, which you said, which comes up. But can we club that with what do you say? The feeling of I'm not doing enough, the feeling of not doing enough, and the guilt and anxiety that arises from that. Do you want to speak to that, Archana?
Um, so yes, ideally what happens is, in spite of putting our best efforts as caregivers, it often leads us as caregivers to feel guilty for not being able to do enough. This is quite natural, I feel. Especially this can happen even more after the unfortunate passing away of the parent. It can be there happening even when the parent is trying to cope with their health conditions and you're trying to do your best as a caregiver. But uh, when I put some thought on why this happens, I had a feeling that this could be because there is some expectation, societal expectations, or we as caregivers set our own personal standards. This is how my caregiving has to be.
Mhm.
So, when we don't meet such expectations, we feel that guilt and that feeling that we haven't done enough.
Mhm.
So, and even after having done so much, when you see that your parent is declining in their health condition, you feel that, oh, I should have done better. I should have done that. I should have tried, if I would have followed the Ayurvedic uh, treatment, you feel at that time, oh, I should have tried homeopathy. If you have done Ayurvedic and homeopathy, then you feel you missed out on something else. So this is kind of,
Yes.
quite natural.
Yes.
So this can kind of lead to that constant worry about falling short or failing as a caregiver.
Mhm.
And this can also lead to some amount of anxiety and self criticism. I felt this quite a bit after my mother passed away. I kept thinking, oh, I should have done this, I should have done that. Probably she would have been alive.
Mhm.
So, this is kind of natural, I suppose, for any caregiver to experience.
I think the hindsight thinking is always a thing that we humans do, right, Archana? Whatever you've done, and you're so rightly you put it, like allopathy, homeopathy, Ayurvedic, and whatnot, and everything. And at that point, you did what you could, and to the best of your abilities. I think understanding that takes time, especially when the loss has been experienced, right? Like that's where the time comes. So, this not enoughness of not doing enough is especially felt by children who are not living with their parents, especially the long distance things, which we will talk about more in one of our other episodes. But that's something that people live with all their life, this guilt and this feeling of falling short in caring for the parents. So I think I don't know, the way I look at it is, or deal with it, is that of course when you sit in that quiet space and pause, you have self compassion and self love, you understand all the ways in which you did your best at that moment. Yes, now you've already somebody else in the few days after, right? Now your thoughts will be different. But at that moment, you did your best. And understanding that itself takes a lot of time, because there is that imposter in us or that worry in us that keeps saying, no, 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 you should have done this. You could have done this. Why didn't you do this? That should have been done. And it's a constant conversation that's going on in the head with this person, that you have to keep on defending. So I think stopping that defense and putting up your hands and saying, I just did what I knew best then. It might have been right, might have not been right. I don't know. I just did what I knew, right? So I think that's a big relieving thing for of relieving or soothing the guilt, anxiety, and not enoughness that comes from caring. And you're so right about the society. We are so ever ready to judge another person's caring. They should have put a caregiver, they should have done this, they could have come back, they should have come and lived here, that person came back and lived here. So there's so much of comparison, and this, and most of these people are people who have not yet faced that situation yet, so it's really a judgment. So I think strengthening ourselves enough to hear in this year and let it out to the other year, like they say, and listen to our inner guidance for what is right. And because this is a very, very personal and a real situation where there's finances involved, there is time involved, there is abilities involved, there's so much that we have to look into, which doesn't meet the naked eye. Like, when you look at it, you don't see this. When you look it through a microscope, then you will see, oh, they had to deal with all this, oh, they had to put this together. So refrain from judging others and judging yourself is my learning from this. So that's one thing, and this segues very beautifully into actually the loss of a parent after all the caregiving, right, Archana? So while what I say will be from a coaching perspective and all that, I think you will be able to say from an experiential perspective as to how you dealt with it and what you would like to share with the listeners.
Grieving the loss of a parent can actually happen much before the parent has actually passed away.
Mhm.
Um, this might be quite, unusual to hear, but for us, we've seen our parents since our birth, and we have that typical image of what our parents were doing, how they were, with their health, their cognition, their independence. But when they start losing it because of their health reasons, and we don't see them anymore in the same way, uh, we we kind of start grieving without our without us being aware. So we already start grieving because we don't see them anymore in the same way. And So this can actually lead to some amount of sadness when they are still alive, and you don't see them being the same parent for you. Let me explain that better with an example. So let's assume that there's a son caring for his father, who has probably an advanced Alzheimer's. Though his father is physically present, the son, who is the caregiver, begins to mourn the loss of his father because of the man that he used to be. So he starts recalling all the memories that he had about his father, the probably the advice and the laughter, the countless things that the son, as a caregiver, starts recalling about his father. Now, as his father can no longer recognize the son, and he struggles to even communicate, the son feels extreme sadness and helplessness. So he begins to grieve the gradual loss of his father's personality and identity, while still physically caring for him every day, and experiencing that mix of love, pain, and what is called as anticipatory grief.
Mm-hmm.
So this is what it is. When I was seeing my mother kind of being totally helpless, she would even struggle to breathe as she rolled on the bed towards the end. you know, and I would feel miserable about seeing her that way. I would go to the room and write it down in my diary that today I can't see my mother like this. It,
Mm-hmm.
it's of extreme pain to me to see my mother this way, because when I saw her in that helpless condition, I would get uh, a million memories of my mother long ago, how active she used to be.
Mm-hmm.
So, and that brings in a lot of grief as a caregiver.
I really want to exaggerate on the fact that you said that you were journaling, because I think that is a great way to bring out the feelings that are arising, which are so, so, so natural and real for every human being, Archana. Like, if the problem actually is not the grief, the problem is the resistance to grief. And how can one not feel grief when a loved one is in a struggling phase? It is impossible when you share blood, when you share experiences, you share life. It is inevitable for one to feel grief. So I think allowing grief is this lesson here. It's not about not grieving. When is grief going to end? Because it doesn't end. And I'll let you talk about that part of it as well. But grief it's not about getting rid of grief. It is not about being done. It's about integrating it into life in a different way. And where is it? And seeing from the perspective of what is right now. So as you are seeing, there is grief that's rising, and there is this knowing that this is the moment we have. Let's spend it together. Let's spend it together. While that grief is an underlying coloring for everything that you're doing, right? It's so you can't separate it and say I'm going to be so it's impossible to say there'll be no grief. So like you beautifully said, grief is not just the physical loss of the parent. It is the loss of the parent that we envisioned in our childhood, in our young adulthood, until recently, when they have been the pillar of strength for us. And now we are having been called to be that pillar of strength for them. they are actually looking at us. I think you would have experienced it too, that they are looking at us for that pillar of strength. And we can be that very well, very nicely, very powerfully. This is a natural happening in life where the parent ages and the child is embracing this power. But for that, we have got to be aware of this grief. We have got to be aware of the guilt. We've got to be aware of our, the first episodes that we spoke about, the part of us that is not seen and heard that comes up at this moment. And it's time to, bring that part down and show up for our parents in ways that they are looking for us. So, I think journaling is a great tool for our listeners to take away from this episode is journal when you feel overwhelmed, when you, whatever that feeling may be of guilt, anxiety, because nobody gets to read this except you. And the more you have it in your head here, it's going to keep trickling into your body in the form of feelings, sensations, and weakening you. But when you bring it out and put it onto a paper or going to therapy or coaching and talking about it, you are actually bringing it out and freeing space in your head. That's what journaling is doing. It's removing the stuff that's not serving you, the stories, and putting it on paper. And it's relieving you to come to this parent back refreshed. So that's beautifully shared. Thank you, Archana. I mean, I know how hard this episode is for the both of us, but we are doing it with a particular intention to share what we've experienced so that people can, instead of becoming, totally helpless in all this, you can rise like a phoenix and become that powerful one for your parent. The physical loss is by itself a different ball game, right, Archana? So what were your experiences and how did you embrace yourself when you lost your mother?
Smriti, it's very difficult, very, very difficult to actually, to even accept the fact that they are no longer physically around us. So, coping with that can take forever because you've lived a lifetime with your parent. I mean, for several years, you have had uh, countless memories with your parent. You have shared every emotion with them, and every corner of the house sometimes reminds us of them, where they sat, where they slept. So, and if the person is not around us, it becomes very difficult to even accept that. I mean, how can that be like? It can't be like a switch on and switch off, right? So today they are there, so I mean, I know they are there, so tomorrow they're gone, and it's okay. It's over. It's a chapter closed. No, we can never, never, never accept things like that. It takes time for anyone to heal. So I especially found it very difficult because I was my mother's primary caregiver for over 10 years. And I spent a lot of time with her. And especially I was by her side during her, hospital visits or during her illness. And for me to accept that she's gone, and of course, people do say that don't worry, now she's in a better place and things like that. But I continue to miss my mother a lot.
Yes.
So, but from what I personally felt is it's only with time that things will get better. Uh, as we get going with our lives, but still somewhere we continue to miss them, and we'll forever carry our parents in our heart as children. So it's not like we'll forget and move on. We'll forever have them somewhere in our heart, very closely held, and they will continue to stay and they will continue to guide us for the rest of our lives. But yes, it's a good idea to get busy with our activities so you feel a little better.
Yeah, see, as a primary caregiver, many of our listeners must be also relating to you, because when they are primary caregivers, their life is almost occupied by this caring, and there's a big chunk of it that's happening. And when this person is no longer there, there's that chunk that has become a void, And with the grieving that's happening and all that you said, where I mean, it's every leaf, every stone reminds you of them, and the process is such a process, like the word says, that one can't hasten it or avoid it or do anything about it, but go through it. So I think, like time, they say time is the healer for a reason, because as days pass by, you don't forget at all. But only thing that happens is, I think, an integrating of the formless part of them into your life, like knowing that they exist, but in a different form, that happens over time, and it cannot be prematurely rushed in, because that again causes other health concerns, and not being able to live life fully for ourselves if we don't live grieve fully for our parents, and in every way. So I think that's a big topic that can be spoken about so much. And I think real life examples and the beauty of grieving that loss of that young parent that we saw, and seeing that feelings, and allowing whatever feelings surface up, but soothing them in our own way. So I, like we spoke about in our self-care episode, if you, the listeners, haven't listened to it, please go and listen to our self-care episode, because we talk about how that is such an important part of caregiving, to take care of ourselves and to have that toolkit which we can go to when the time calls for it. So anything else, Archana, you think we've left out on?
Uh, Smriti, actually, what I'd like to say is caring for elderly parents is normally done with deep love, right? So, but it can also cause heavy demands on the mental and emotional health of the caregiving child. But one would have to understand that it requires a lot of
Hmm.
balancing with self care and also seeking support. It's not wrong to seek support. Uh, we just have to make up our mind and just reach out when we need that support. And it's also important to address some challenges, like as caregivers, one would go through, that is guilt, grief, and that emotional overwhelm. This can help the caregivers maintain their well being uh, while, doing their uh, role as a caregiver with responsibility, and giving it the right amount of, doing it with enough justice. So there are now, of course, this was not there earlier, but now there are a lot of support groups,
Yeah.
and one can reach out for professional counseling. And then there are these respite care centers.
Mhm.
So all these are good options for handling these emotional complexities with to do it with a lot of compassion for one's own self, as and also for the parent who is ailing or in their old age.
I completely second seeking out support, counseling, coaching. This is very important, only simply because this person is one removed from your actual experience. You are in it, experiencing it hands on, and it's very difficult. Even a doctor is not allowed to operate on his own family. Why? Because the emotional aspect of it doesn't let us take informed decisions, because the emotion blurs our thinking abilities. This is the truth of the matter. So, give yourself permission to use the support to give you that thinking, and feel the emotions, not rather than getting swayed by it, is like feeling it and giving it full permission to be here. And that way you can regain. So I think we've spoken about what we can. I'm sure there's a lot more stuff, right, Archana, that we can keep going on. But before we end, I'd just like to say that in case this hasn't occurred to you, you can have many, many, many emotions at one time. So while you are grieving the loss of the abilities of your parent or the actual physical absence of your parent, while you are grieving that, also be present to what is now. For you and for your parent that is here. So be present in the capacity there you can be as connected in this time when they are here. And so this is the purpose of this whole episode, is to acknowledge that everything you're feeling is very normal, but there's another way of embracing that feeling, and also being present to what is and shining your light fully and brightly, because we are all here to live our life fully. That is the reason why we are here, and caring is a part of that living fully. So, thank you for listening. And this has been a really heavy episode, guys. So, thank you for being with us, listening. If you've listened through this whole episode, I feel how your heart must be feeling, just like mine and Archana's a bit full, right, Archana, right now, and in many ways full. And we are happy that we are able to share this with everyone. So until next time, stay present and connected with yourself and your aging parents. Thank you, and bye bye.